So we're recording this. Again, this is very important for us to make note of. Do not work with flippers unless you have a promise or a contract that you are going to be able to relist that home, because usually on the purchase, you're going to get burned as the agent. Okay, so this is very important. The conversation, everybody, is completely different. You're not walking the person up to the house saying, oh my God, are you familiar with Whittier? First of all, the conversation with anybody who is looking to do a long-term hold is completely different, okay? It's to the point. It's about the numbers, the data, okay? It's a lot easier. You cut out the emotions of purchasing property. It's down to the numbers. Right now, I have one of my wealthiest clients. Actually, he's me and Sarah's client. His name is Gilbert Segala. Me and Mike were on our way to an appointment on Saturday. This dude is within walking distance to our office now. He's wealthy. He's a successful trial lawyer. And I helped him become wealthy through his investments. I met him literally on a Friday, and I'll never forget it. It was his 42nd day of his 1031 exchange, and he had not found and identified his properties. By that Sunday, I had him in escrow, okay? This was in 2011. This man has been my client for 11 years, now owns more than 20 units, or doors, as they say. As Mr. Phil Latwan was saying yesterday, checks upon checks every, 60% of the month. We're working towards this, right? Why is this important? As I was mentioning to the team yesterday, good morning, Claudia. Sorry. As I was mentioning to the team yesterday, the reason that this matters is that one client will give you multiple deals annually. Can you imagine how many times I flipped his properties from exchange to exchange, from one exchange to a bigger unit, refinanced him to purchase more units? One person, how many times have I actually gone to see any of these buildings? I think I was in one of them, okay? This is so much easier. No more drama, straight to the point. It's about money, my favorite topic, okay? So let's focus on these. Let's learn this conversation. You will make a huge impression upon the clients, because there's a lot of first-time investors too. Right now, we're gonna learn the 4 cycles of real estate today. Right now, we're entering a recession. More people are likely to want to hold. Can anybody tell me why? Exactly. Rents are high because of inflation. Inflation is the biggest hedge, or investing in real estate is the biggest hedge against inflation. I said that backwards, okay? So you're looking to go ahead and put your money and park it into something that's going to grow in value quickly. Well, raw materials, labor increases during high times of inflation. So what does that mean? Property values will too, which will result in a better rate of return. Okay, so let's start with some basics. Come on. There we go. Okay. Bigger fish. What is it entailed in working with investors? As I said, working with investors is about math. All right. Does anybody know what ROI is? Return on investment. Return on investment. So this is very important. Okay. It's actually the way that you determine rate of return. Okay. You want to know what it costs to maintain the property. And this is important. When you deal with commercial property, you get something that's called an OM. An OM is basically an offering memorandum that breaks down the expenses and the gross income of a property. It's a balance sheet, okay? You have to learn to read these. I know it sounds boring, but if you learn to read these balance sheets, you're gonna have a lot of money, because this is the most important part of this, guys. 99.9% of the people, I don't care what, if you're luxury, I don't care what it is. This isn't about flash. This is about knowing numbers. No one knows it. If you can learn how to read a balance sheet and read the maintenance and repairs, give a client a capitalization rate or a gross rent multiplier, those will quickly drive your conversation. Say, Bernadette's different. Sarah's different. Yvette's different. Claudia's different. That's what you want to do. Remember, there's a realtor on every corner, but this is very specific, okay? I've dealt with dudes. I mean, I remember one of the first times I was with Gilbert, and Gilbert, if anybody's met him, now he's my homeboy, but he didn't start out like that. Oh man, it was like I was the horse and he was on the carriage and he was whooping me and I was going in one direction or the other. It was a situation where I knew my numbers and I earned my respect with it through that process. When I was dealing with the other agents, I mean, he had a master's in accounting at USC. I'm sorry, not accounting, finance, USC. The man didn't know anything about this stuff. Okay. So if you can dictate and learn and know these things, you're going to be super successful. Okay. Economic growth. That's just appreciation. Where can it grow? How can we make more equity? Okay, this is a very important, it's a very important concept, because right now, a lot of people's equities are under attack. Everybody's concerned with, oh my God, where is the value of my property going? Well, it's increasing, it's slowing, it's settling. But the thing is, one thing you guys always got to remember, investing in something that gives you money back is a safer bet than you investing in a single family residence that's a liability. Okay. Remember, when you buy a house, you have a mortgage payment. When you buy an investment property, you have rents that offset that mortgage payment. So there's a lot, it's a lot more likely that that's going to be a safer bet over the long haul, and it will withstand recessions. That's why these are so popular. I think, and I don't see him here. Oh, there he is, Mr. Roan. He's right there. He's been helping me, in the trenches, going, toe to toe with everybody. And he's seen himself. I think we've sold maybe 2 houses this year. The majority of the deals that we've done are investments. Okay. Last year, we're working with Mr. Daniel Garcia, which we've partnered with for the suite at Crypto. He bought 10 properties, one person. Okay. This is the way this works. Okay. The bulk of my stuff, how many properties did I move? I did probably like 70 transactions between loans and houses. It was to so many people though. This is why this is so important. They all could see over the long haul that investing in assets are going to hedge against this recession. So economic growth is important to be able to sell to them, let them know over time, and be able to forecast what's to come. Inflation. Knowing what inflation is. How does it work? What are the economic factors tied to inflation? This is a hot topic, hot button right now. Okay. And this is something that is an easy conversation starter right now. Okay. You want to sell and focus on the higher sales. Well, don't be like selling Sunset. Do this, because this conversation is going to be the one that you're going to have with an investment banker. It's the same one that you're going to have with an advertising agent, a public relations manager, all those things. Okay. An attorney, a doctor. Inflation is a hot button topic, however you say that. And the thing about it is, it's easy for you to speak about as long as you know what it is. What drives inflation? Well, The consumer goods are more expensive, tied to labor costs. Those things increase. Gas prices, international wars, things that occur overseas, trade deals that fall apart with foreign countries. All those things drive inflation. Fucking COVID. We still have stuff on boats that can't be delivered. All that drives inflation. So as prices increase, what is the government's position? Things can't get too expensive for the normal person, which is why we have interest rates rising. Okay. Being able to know and discern what's important within that conversation is how you're going to be able to win with that client. Okay. Credit is incredibly important. Being able to know too, and this isn't just your FICO score conversation. This is the conversation that you have in saying, okay, Herb, you have a property that's worth $1 million. You have a mortgage that's $400,000. Okay. Remember what Philip said yesterday. How do we use your credit as a leverage? By cashing out $200,000 and buying something else. FICO scores come into this very importantly, and this is for my lenders. They're very sensitive, even at the highest levels for investors. The rate adjusts incredibly from 760 to 720. Okay. So those things are very important because obviously the bank says, hey, you know what? Herb's going to make money on this transaction. Well, he's not going to do it through us for free. We're going to charge a premium for what he's doing. And right now, because inflation and because of the recession, the loan to values are a little bit high. Lower, meaning you require a bigger down payment. Okay. But before this happened, they were doing it as low as 85% loan to value. That's very, very important to maintain. The less that you need up front, the less you need to pull out from your other properties, okay? What you want to make sure of in any property, at least that you're going one-to-one, okay? This is very important when you're looking at this. What's going one-to-one? That the mortgage pays off the rent, the rent pays the mortgage, And that's what you want to make sure of, because then what do you have? Economic growth. If you put the same amount of money in your savings account, it's not going to grow. If you would have done this in 2019 and just bought a 4-unit property, it'd be worth 30% more today. This is why this is important. And if you can go ahead and illustrate this information to the client and compare it to an investment with securities and say, well, your average rate of return is 4% in the stock market. However, in real estate and investing in something that's paying for itself, you're paying down the mortgage, you're growing in the value with it. And then on top of that, it's growing at a faster rate. So that's very important to be able to illustrate. Liquidity. This ties to this last thing I just spoke about. Liquidity is important because you need to be able to determine how much equity is accessible. To my lenders, how much can someone cash out on a regular conventional loan on an investment property? What loan to value?
70.
Yes, sir. 70%. This is important because when you're doing a regular house, it's 80. It's 10% difference. What does it mean? That your margins for being able to access that liquidity are much smaller. So, one time, because I was new at this, 10 years ago, I'm like, we were trying to have the dance with somebody. And I say, hey, well, let's just pull out the money. And he was ready to do it. I went to my lender, Gus. I'm like, Gus, go check it out. He's like, Herb, he's got a loan amount of 580 and it's worth 700. I'm like, well, pull some money out. He's like, dude, we're limited. He can't do anything, right? I looked like an idiot because I didn't know what I was talking about. You know what I mean? So this is why this is important to know. This is why you want to be able to have the conversation and lead him in the right direction. Okay. Now that we know this, we need to know, and we're going to go dive deeper into what Philip was talking about yesterday. Rate of return versus cash flow. Okay. And now we're doing the actual math. It doesn't sound sexy, I know, but we have to do this in order to be able to give him this example, so that way they can, the client, the example, so that way they can make an informed decision. Okay. Herb's unit, 4-unit property rents for $8,000 per month. There's $8,000 per month in income, and then I have to take into account the expenses. There's a mortgage for $5,500. There's taxes, there's hazard insurance, there's repairs that we account for on a monthly basis, sewer, garbage, and then property management that we're paying Mr. Salvador for. You know, so all this comes out to $7,310 a month. Cash flow is total income, $8,000 minus total expenses. Cash flow is also known as mailbox money. I have a net income of $690. Now at this point, this property is going a little bit more than 1-to-1. Because of that, it's a great investment. I should do it. Pull the trigger. If you're able to break this down for your client, who's like, it makes complete sense, because you're parking your money into a place that it's going to be safe, it's going to grow, and there's nothing like being able to touch and see something. You have securities and you see it as digits on a computer. I don't know what that means. Look at what it means for crypto. I mean, when I opened my the newspaper this morning, it was selling for less than $20,000. 2 years ago, it was 66. It's crazy. But when you can see a property, you can touch it, and then you can also think about, well, it's not cash flowing right now, but I'm making $690. I can stash it away and kind of grow and foster that money. Over time, the rents increase. Me and Earl have a client. I mean, she's vicious, but she really came up. Miss Carolyn Coronel, never forget her. She's mean, and she bought her 4-unit property in 2015. I was able to 2016. I was able to double end that one. Earl did the financing for it, and the good thing about it was that she was just breaking even. She was actually, I think I've sold some of my comrades here on the dream of buying an FHA property and having 3 units pay for the 1 unit. Well, that was her situation, right? She's a nurse, so she wants, I want to invest. I want to do this. Well, comes today, and her payment is $5,500, and she bought that house on an FHA loan on a high rate. She never refinanced it. She never wants to. I keep asking her to, even still lower today than what she got it for back then. And her rents or her mortgage was $5,500. And then at the time, the rents were just doing it to cover the payment. Inflation has happened. Time has happened. This is in Boyle Heights. Now her rents are $9,000. And this is in a short period of time. The property has appreciated to an incredible value. I think it's almost $2.2 million. Sold it for $8 million. Okay. And she's cash flowing at $4,500 a month. I mean, every time I approach her to try to sell her something, it's like she's going to beat me up. She's like, why'd you call me? She always calls me to rent it for her, but she never wants me to take, she never wants to take my call when I want to try to sell it. Point being is, if you look at this over the long haul, especially where we are, and I'm not talking about Riverside County, it's great, but sustainable, safe investments are going to be Los Angeles and Orange, Ventura too, but Los Angeles, Orange, and even San Diego. Okay. So where we will see that economic growth, where we will have more carrots. I can't tell you how many of my clients that I have, everybody here hears about Saul. He goes thug life on me every year. Okay. He's meaner than Nadia. And and here's the thing, okay? He started on an FHA loan. He was my very, very first one, okay? He's the most successful of all of them. He's now on to like 5 buildings, with each being anywhere from 3 units to 4 units. And they're all in the Silver Lake area. One's in East. Wealthy beyond his imagination, right? And what does he do? I think Earl refinanced him last year, pulled out $400,000, and he's just waiting to strike right now. He's just waiting because he knows he wants the right opportunity. He's re-leveraging the money, okay? Pulling it out to see where else he can grow. These are the things that I want to really impress upon you, is that you will build a really solid reputation, because nobody really does this. There's some great agents that do it, but so far and few in between. So understand this. This one's probably the most important formula in all of this. Rate of return is just a layman's way of saying capitalization rate. Okay. Who has heard that term, the cap rate? Many times, right? Cap rate simply is the net operating income divided by the purchase price, okay, times 100. So right here, we'll take this, we'll take the market value. Well, right now this says market value, but that's how you determine if it's your property now or if it's something that you're looking to purchase. Annual income minus expenses is $35,000. Divided by 750 will give you a 4.6% cap rate, okay? The lower the cap rate, a lot of people make the mistake of saying that that's a poor investment when they just don't know what they're talking about. Cap rates and understanding good investments are also location-based. A capitalization rate in Needles, California, which is right on the border of Arizona, and that's, I think, Havasu's around the corner. It's down the street, right, in Arizona. I've seen capitalizations rates as high as like 23% that were shit, because the property and the actual rate of return of growth, economic growth, was never going to happen, right? It didn't work. I've seen capitalization rates in Santa Monica at 2% that were good deals. Okay. You have to be able to analyze these things and know the difference. Dive deeper is what I always say. Dive deeper into knowing these things and saying, okay, if I can understand this and also see, compare it to the location and what other good investments are going for in the area, it's like doing comps. But you measure it against everything else that's being sold in that neighborhood. You weigh it within what makes sense, and 2-3% might make sense for Santa Monica over the long term, because what does it have? Incredible economic growth in that area. It's significantly different. I think it's what, over the last, and Mike can tell you, I mean, he lives on the west side. Santa Monica's changed maybe at a rate of maybe 50% in 10 years. That's how much growth has been in that area. There's more homeless people than anything else, but the values are astronomical. So that was a good investment. You see what I'm saying? So you have to take the two in. Now, imagine sitting at a table with a variety of realtors, a variety of lenders, and being the only one that has this information down. Who all of a sudden emerges as the expert? This is why this is so important, right? So making sure that you can drive the conversation and be able to pull the trigger on this is important. This is also an easy way to get a listing. Hey, Claudia, it's time to sell the property. Your properties, your units. We've reached a point where it's probably a good idea to flip them into maybe 10 units. Let's use that money to leverage. Either we're going to refinance them and pull the money out, or let's look at selling them and using a 1031 exchange. Okay, so that way they cash flow. That's what's important. Okay, I would personally be okay investing into a property that did have some margins where I had to put in out of pocket, depending on where it was. Okay, because I know that that would be a short-term thing, and over time it would change. That's why you see so many different investors take chances on LA. Rent control's a bitch. Everybody knows that. But I mean, people, you know, they end up moving, their families grow, they die. It's just inevitable. So that's why there's still solid investments out there. The important thing is you have to look at it and analyze it and see. The money does you better use, and you have to understand this concept and believe it, and so we have to be able to sell it. The money does you better use in a property than sitting in your bank account doing nothing. The bank's winning there because they're using it to lend. So as long as you know that and say, well, you know what? If I could stretch this out over 18 months and I'm going to come in with a $500 shortage, where is the means that things are going to go on an upward trajectory where I'm going to appreciate and cash flow? If it's only that much in that period, I'll do it, you know, but you have to be able to know this and be able to convey it to the client so that they can understand it. Now, aside of this, okay, this is like the very basic calculations, okay? You have to know the statistical data, okay? This is a non-starter. If you don't know what's going on in Downey, for example, okay, there's so many units, this is how many are available, this is how long it's taking to sell them, don't even start, because the investors know. They know. They're looking all the time. I have had clients that have more resources than I do because they're on, well, there was one back in the day, it was called Foreclosure Radar, right? There's, and I didn't have access to that because I was a new agent. I was like, oh shit, $80, huh? So there's different tools, there's different things that they have available at their fingertips, okay? Know what the comparables are, okay? 30, 60, 90-day comparables, 30, 60, 90-day rental comparables. This is important. We just sold a building that was completely vacant in Cudahy. And, you know, what can we realistically expect? It's vacant. We don't have anything to go off of. Know your information. Know landmark sales of the last 6 months in the general area. If you can say, well, dude, this one here in Downey on the south side, it's only 2 miles away. It's just a little bit smaller than what we got, but it went for so much. If you invested X amount of dollars into this property, we could get this amount realistically. When you're doing appraisals and you're leveraging that information for yourself, you are allowed to go far out. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as far as 5 miles in some instances, if there isn't a company, okay? Some appraisers are going to make sure that they're almost identical to the T, because even it's even hard for them to determine value. No, you're good. Know the opportunities with distressed properties versus something that's turnkey. That's the same concept that you're going to find with single family residences. All right. Being able to say, okay, well, this property owner has pulled out the majority of the growth and equity, at least in the short term. However, location is fantastic. Over the long haul, I can see this growing. Okay, let's pull the trigger. Versus something that, okay, this is like, I mean, a bad neighborhood and it's beat up. Maybe I'll stay away, you know? Rental rates. We have access to Rentometer or Rentometer, however we want to see it. Just, keep messing it up. Yeah. Hey, you know what? Pinky up in the air. The reason that it's important, like our systems, and that's something I don't really push too much. That's something that we give you guys as a free resource. You can use it. It gives you rental comparables. It's something that you can use for your clients. It shows the median of rents. It shows the higher rents, and you can obviously weigh it against size, location within the zip code. And then, if you can try to connect it to the MLS, you'll be able to see why it's so much of a difference in the rents. Use it. It's there for you. Nadia has access to it. Okay. Huge. Was anybody aware that there's completely different tax assessments for multi-unit properties? It have huge differences. You'll have the property tax rate and a $2,000 to $3,000 difference in what the single family residence is going to be charged to the multi-unit. Why? Because it's multi-unit. There's more properties. So they reassess they charge you those fees times whatever the unit is. So that's why. Make sure that you know this as a lender. Make sure you know this as a realtor. If you're looking up at the highest point, oh, well, you know what? Herb said that Juan qualifies up to $2 million, and you find them something right at $2 million. The rents are so much, okay, everything's matching up, but you didn't take into the property taxes into account because it's not 1.25 anymore. It's going to vary. You have to pull a tax roll to be able to find out what works. And then while we're doing the analysis, make sure that you manage the expectation with a new investor. It's like, wait a second, what do you mean we can't go into the property with it, to make an offer? What do you mean I have to do it sight unseen? This is a very common practice when you're looking at multi-unit property. Why? Well, fucking landlord doesn't want to piss the tenants off. That's why. This is why. So we have to make sure that we're mindful of this information. We want to make sure that this is at the forefront. Listen, we have to make a bid before we see it. There's no commitment. It's subject to your approval of the interior inspection. Then from there we proceed. That saves you a ton of time because you're not out there driving as a chauffeur. And then you lock it in, you show it to them, you open escrow and close. Know the typical maintenance cost. Okay. You can measure this by, using common sense, right? Well, how much it costs to run gas for a gas per square footage, right? How many kilowatts, all those things. Those things are stats that are available to you through the MLS. Okay. And you can basically take a look, take an average and weigh it against the size of the property. Okay. Get a general idea. The other one's taking the history of the property. If you've ever closed on a multi-unit, one of the things that comes in the disclosures are the light bills and the water bills for the last 12 months. Why? Because you want to take that into the calculation of the property, so that way you can measure that against what your expectation of it was and see what the net income is. So again, this niche is completely relationship driven. Okay. And this is how crazy it's kind of been. I've had 2 clients and cross-sold their properties. One time I hit the domino where I double-ended each one and did the loans for them. Okay. This is how easy it was. Okay. Right now, Saul owns Gilbert's multi-unit, and Gilbert's moved on to a 10-unit. It's all relationship driven. When we did, and some of you weren't here last year when I did my suite party for my clients, they got to know each other for the first time and didn't even know that I had done that. Okay. From those clients, they fostered a little bit of a friendship. From those clients, we fostered so many different opportunities. The 4 unit that we've been selling now came from Gilbert. Okay, basically a referral. Why? Because they know. I don't know. A few of you worked on me in some deals and see like, dude, these guys fucking are heated. They fucking yelling at each other, they're mad. You know, think, well, I wouldn't be like that with my client. Why is Herb, go back and forth with them? Because they know no one else knows this shit. And they've seen it with their own eyes that the referring party is a millionaire now. This stuff works if you know it. Relationship driven, okay? More important, going back on this, I want to really harp on this. Most investors aspire to own more than the one door. Okay, so guess what? You do a good job, you know your numbers, they're going to keep coming back. Any of you have dealt with listings that maybe were potential flips or maybe were units? Have you seen that investors will sometimes come into your property, do the looking, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to double end it, try to get them to write the offer right there, and it's like, no, I have my agent. The bond is almost unbreakable. Okay, I haven't had anybody do me. Oh, like Saul acted a little funny one time, but outside of that, no one's ever done that. Okay, and it's because you have such a strong bond, because you're able to give them the correct information, be able to highlight why it's a good investment, so you have them stay away from stuff that doesn't make any sense, and then open it, close it, and be able to help them foster this over time and sell it again. This is very important. If you work within this realm, you're going to have clients for the long haul. For our lenders, we've mentioned this. Investors always use leverage. The Donald Trump way of real estate. Okay? The Donald Trump way of real estate is never use your own money. So what do? They go ahead and use the bank's money. They use the properties. They take it up to the max LTV, pull it out, buy something else, do it again and again and again. So guess what? I have over my years of doing this, and trust me, I sell plenty of houses, but over my years of doing this, this is the part that sticks out the most, because, and Nadia will tell you, the same dudes are always in my pipeline. There's Daniel again. There's Saul again. There's Gilbert again. They need to do something all the time. You want to add this as a notch on your tool belt for something else that will feed you, give you business, okay? They always need to make movements. COVID happened. Everybody thought it was the end of the world. No, we listed. Okay, you know what? We gave them solutions. Like I said, referrals. Big time on referrals. I can't even imagine how many each one is giving me referrals. Yeah, of course, some of them are houses. A lot of them just decided to buy houses. Others went right into the investment game and started their own efforts. Okay. Again, one of the things that I hated about being a newbie agent was how often I was showing houses. One of the years I told you guys I sold one house a week, and it wasn't, I think there was a few investments that year, but mostly was single family. What was I doing? Driving. I think on 2 of the properties I sold Gilbert in the last 3 years, he never even went to until they were his. Okay. And I think I went to him once. We didn't see them. We opened escrow on a couple of them. And he made me FaceTime him when we were doing the final walkthrough. Okay, it's different. It's easier. It's a lot less stress. It's a lot less drama. People ain't, you don't have the wife getting mad because, oh my God, we didn't get the kitchen redone or whatever. It's like this or the other. Oh my goodness, the school district, no one gives a shit. It's all about the data coming back. What's my cash flow? What's the net income? How long is it going to take for me to get my money back? Okay, that's a very different conversation, everybody. Let's see here. Let's tie this together to yesterday. Okay. Now that we know all this, okay, we have this information. It's a baseline info. So that way you guys can, you have an idea of what's going on. You tie this to the tax advantages. Same concept. Yesterday, Philip said, you have $1 million house. One you exchange, the other one you don't. The one you don't, you have capital gains tax. Okay. You bought that house for $300,000. Now it's worth $1 million. You're going to just do what with the money? Oh, well, I was going to take some to go on vacation. I was going to use some of it to go into, college fund. I'm just going to use some of it to go into some securities investments. I want to pad my 401k. Terrible idea. The taxes would be, if you saw him break it down yesterday, almost 50%. When you break down Social Security taxes, Medicare taxes, federal taxes, the state disability taxes, state taxes, by the time that money's coming around to you, it's 50% gone. So instead, you can diversify, take that money, put it in the 1031 exchange, and buy something else and use the entire gain to get what? More cash flow. If you use the tax advantages correctly, you can even take and lower your total tax liability. So you have your job, you can reduce your job's total liability using these, because they'll be at a negative negative return each. Because if they're each at a negative return, it lowers your total tax basis. This is important. Now, you don't have to be a CPA to understand that, okay? You have to have the concepts. 100% of the time, refer them to their tax person, okay? But you can speak, water cooler talk and be able to say, hey, look, this is a good advantage. Or instead, why don't you speak with your CPA to really find out? This isn't a secret. It's a huge advantage. Okay. You can do reverse 1031 exchanges where you find the property first and then buy the other one. Like Philip said, much more involved. Make sure that you understand what capital gains are. Make sure that you know what those rates are. That's easy to know, right? I think, like I said, it's almost 50%, but it was in Philip's. If you paid attention, it was in Philip's presentation yesterday. And then know the exemptions. Okay. One person who's lived in their home for 2 out of the last 5 years is exempt for $250,000. If they're married, if that person's married, $500,000. Okay. There's nothing for them to worry about with taxes. So it's not for everybody. And 1031 exchanges are not for people that are buying primary residences. They're strictly investments. 1031 exchanges are not for people buying second homes, vacation homes. Okay. A lot of people think so. No. You need to rent it. You need to report it on taxes on a Schedule E form. A lot of people don't, and I've seen them, they look for that. That's where there's a lot of fraud. So that's where they're just waiting and lurking for it to be an issue. Okay. Common threads from one-off investors to sophisticated developers. Okay. Liquidity is everything. Okay. Properties. So obviously you need big downs to even enter this market, right? Well, not necessarily. If you use it as a primary residence and live in a 4-unit for the first year, you can use your FHA loan. Outside of that though, liquidity is everything. You need for it to cash flow at a decent rate, 25%. 25% is the minimum investment on a 2 to 4 year. Okay. There are specialty products for you to get in, but they're a little bit, I wouldn't do them. I wouldn't do them for me unless it was a real opportunity, right? It was like in Santa Monica and it was vacant. I'm like, well, shit, I might take a chance at that, right? With a shaky loan. Outside of that, not necessarily. Liquidity is the most important because you need to be able to get in there. Liquidity is everything because once you own it, we need equity. As that equity grows, you need to be able to pull it out to reinvest. Like I mentioned, with the capitalization rate, location is the top priority, okay? If you're in Needles, California versus Santa Monica, you having a 22% cap rate is not going to matter. It's not going to improve. It's not going to have the economic growth that it will in Santa Monica, California, right? And those are two extremes. But location is top priority because you need to be able to see economic growth. And more importantly, so patience, guys. We have to have patience. This isn't, okay, I'm going to be a millionaire now because I bought this property, right? As you know, right? You mind me sharing? You know, you have your Claudia is an investor herself. She has some units. It took some time for them to increase in value, right? Now they're worth a lot of money. So patience is key with this. Okay. I like to pawn this off on a manager. And I always advocate for a property manager. I'm not going to go change a toilet in the middle of the night. I'm not going to take that call, nor do I care to. I don't care about what happened. There's people that do that. Your clients are going to be so much happier too, because if you have your client dealing with it directly, guess who they're going to call when something goes wrong? They're going to call you. Okay. Make sure that they're going to invest some money in their properties. Okay. Educate them. Be a resource to your clients. We have one huge success, and he's a first-time investor, Frank, right? You guys have heard of my client, Frank, too. He went in, he's Earl's client as well. He went in, came into some money, invested in some properties. Him and his family came into some money. He has 4 brothers and sisters. He's the only one that's still a millionaire. Why? We took his money. I told him, don't put it in the stock market, brother. I'm telling you, you want to see it and touch it. All of his assets total to more than $1 million. So he's, and as a result, when he got those assets, one in particular here in Bell Gardens that we sold for top dollar, 900,000 we sold this, what each unit was 400 square feet. Somehow it had 2 bedrooms in each one, and we sold it. Yeah, it's tiny. But he put, I mean, he didn't put lipstick on that pig. That pig got a full reconstructive surgery. It was brand new, ACs, everything, right? It was 400 square feet, but it was like the Jetsons lived there. And the good thing was, he sold right at the peak. He pulled 900. I think altogether there wasn't much square footage there, and we got the 900 for him. And he was able to take that money and invest it somewhere else, multiple doors again. So, but he only got that because he improved the property. And again, having an exit strategy is important. Main thing is you want to get to a point like my client Saul, where he's just looking for the right investment because he's retiring. Now he's not looking to deal with issues with small time investments. He wants to cash flow. Why? Because that's his money every month. Is he going to make movements? Yeah, of course. He'll need to refi, maybe buy another one, probably buy his kids' houses. It's different. Yes, but you got to make sure you set your clients up to that, because it's going to build your book of business. And this is the last one here. What happens within the shifting market and what's going on with investors? Know the time frames, right? For a 1031 exchanges, we're looking at 45-day identification periods, 180-day from purchase to from opening, from sale to repurchase. Okay, that's important. Knowing when the time is to get out of the investment, measure the formulas, rate of return, cap rate. Is there enough equity to do this? Okay, know the time frames. Huge opportunity knocks if you go ahead and are able to measure that, because what can you do? If someone has enough equity, you can pool 600,000-700,000, refinance, sell, whatever, and invest in multiple other properties, bigger commissions. Get the loans for the office, even more money. Those loans, a lot easier. They're on a DSCR, debt service coverage ratio product. Easy. All it is the rents. As long as he pays his other properties on time, has a high FICO score, which most do, easy. No stress, just money. Okay. Take into account external factors. Rent control. Rent control is an external factor that COVID pandemic revealed this in a way that I've never seen in my life, okay? Take into account for those things. What are the local governments doing? Okay, LA County versus Orange County. If I could get something in Orange, you better best believe I'm gonna get it, okay? Versus LA, yeah, right. It just depends. Big fucking issue I found myself with my client Gilbert. Thank God he's my friend. We got him in East LA, and I ended up having to resell that property immediately because what? I didn't take into account the external factor. I'm like, well, the LA County doesn't have rent control. I didn't realize that 2 months before they enacted the first one. Well, guess what Herb couldn't do? Couldn't evict the tenants to raise the rents. I couldn't raise the rents. I couldn't do anything. The client was Herb was in a lot of hot water. And fortunately, we resold it right away. But I didn't take into account any external factors, and it was a huge issue. Like I said, understand your local conditions. They shift. Same situation in Montebello with the same client. No rent control. Doesn't matter that the state's there. All we did was serve the notices and say, hey, listen, it's time to move. Unless you want to pay the rent that we're going to charge market. They all moved within 60 days. Completely different from literally a mile and a half away. Okay, so know your local conditions. And there are 4 stages of this real estate cycle. Okay, and we have to really take a look at it where we're at right now. It's not real. We're in a recession, which is the last one. Right now, we're in recovery. I mean, we're not in recovery, but it's a very untraditional situation right now. You have the COVID pandemic that ended up coming in, annihilating everything, right? Economically destroyed so many different things, except for the real estate market. It boosted it for some reason. Who would have thought? I thought I was going to be a greeter at Walmart. It's not the case. Okay. But traditionally you have the recovery where you buy multifamily and hold, expansion where people purchase commercial property more often, right? And then hyper supply where you do a long-term hold. Okay. And that's anything. That's a house. If you compare the different periods of time in 2011 on to even 15, you had a lot of people that were just holding onto these properties, just renting them because over time they're going to grow, and look at what's happened. And then typically in recession, you're flipping, but this isn't a typical recession, right? And we're in its beginning too. Recovery is going to be what happens typically after a recession, but it's like I said, a completely different situation with what we got going on now. Being able to tell your clients this kind of stuff is important. He's like, look, understand that right now, multifamily long-term holds are very, very important. Why? Because you have inflation, you have escalating rents. Okay. Property values have stifled. People are scared to make the investments. There's a reason why the banks are contracting their investments. What are they contracting means? They're making their loan to values lower, meaning it requires a bigger down payment. Okay. So now it's 25%, 30%. They were doing 15 before. Why? Because they're seeing that everything's changing within the marketplace. So if you go ahead and take advantage of that and you show that to your client is, well, you know what, right now, you're going to be able to get a better deal on this 4-unit than you would have in January. Pull the trigger on it, hold it, the rents will increase. And that's it, everybody. Does anybody have any questions for me?
What's NOI stand for?
Net operating income. Awesome. Well, guys, very important. I'm glad that you guys were all able to join me today for our 10th, that's for our investor conversations training. Next week, we may not have the sales training because it is the Small Business Expo. Believe that me and some of the team are going to be going. You're all welcome. It's free. And for our lenders, it might be a good idea to go to network. Use Small Business Expo, non-QM loans, they go hand in hand. Downtown LA, Thursday. So let me know. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.